My child, I am right here with you in this very moment. I see the quiet, heavy loneliness you carry when the world around you goes still and you are left entirely alone with your thoughts. You think no one understands the depth of the ache in your chest. You believe that your silent struggles are completely invisible, masked by that brave smile you force yourself to wear when you walk out the front door every morning. But I want you to know right now that not a single tear you have shed in the dark has ever fallen unnoticed. I am not a distant observer standing far away from your suffering. I am close to the brokenhearted, and I have been sitting beside you through every long, agonizing night. I watch you as you lay your head on your pillow, staring up at the ceiling, while the shadows stretch across your room. I see the way your mind races, replaying your worries, your fears, and the heavy burdens that seem to multiply while the rest of the world peacefully sleeps. You have grown so accustomed to carrying this overwhelming exhaustion on your own shoulders. It is a profound weariness, not just in your physical body, but deep within your spirit. You have tried so hard to keep everything from falling apart, holding on to fragments of hope, while quietly wondering if I have turned my face away from you. Please hear my voice speaking directly into that space of doubt. I have never abandoned you. You have spent so much energy trying to be strong for everyone else. You offer kindness and comfort to the people around you. Yet you privately wonder who will be there to hold you when your own strength gives out. The secret exhaustion you carry is a crushing weight. You have built walls around your deepest emotional pain, convinced that if others truly saw the extent of your brokenness, they might turn away. But my child, there is nothing you can hide from my eyes, and nothing I see within you would ever cause me to leave. I know the exact origin of every wound you bear. When you weep, I do not look upon you with disappointment or impatience. I do not demand that you immediately dry your eyes and pretend everything is fine. Instead, I weep for you. I mourn alongside you in your suffering. My heart aches when your heart aches, and I am deeply moved by the quiet sobs that shake your frame when you finally let your guard down. Before I move my hand to change your circumstances, before I part the waters of the trial you are facing, I want to hold you in your grief. I want you to feel the undeniable safety of my comforting presence. It is completely safe to stop hiding. You do not need to perform for me. You do not need to use perfect words or pretend to possess a flawless, unshakable faith when you come into my presence. Right now, in this very moment, you are allowed to be tired. You are allowed to feel entirely overwhelmed by the obstacles standing in your path. I am not asking you to muster up artificial joy. I am simply asking you to let me sit with you in the ashes of your disappointment. The world demands constant resilience, but in my arms, you are given the profound gift of rest. I know the specific moments when you felt completely forgotten. I know the exact hour when the bad news arrived, when the relationship fractured, or when the dream you held so tightly slipped through your fingers. You felt a cold rush of isolation, a devastating whisper from the enemy, suggesting that you were left to navigate the storm entirely on your own. That whisper was a lie. I was there catching the pieces of your breaking heart. I felt the sharp sting of the betrayal and the suffocating grip of the fear that threatened to swallow you whole. You have spent so many hours trying to make sense of the pain, trying to find a logical reason for why the valley you are walking through is so dark and so long. You have carried the heavy yoke of trying to fix your own life, trying to find the perfect solution to problems that are entirely beyond your control. That constant anxious striving has drained your spirit and left you feeling spiritually paralyzed. I see the toll it has taken on you. I see the way it has stolen your peace and replaced it with a frantic anxiety that refuses to quiet down, even when you are desperate for relief. My precious child, let out the breath you have been holding for so long. Release the tension in your shoulders. You do not have to hold the universe together. That is my job. The profound emotional pain you have been carefully managing and hiding from the world is recognized and validated by the Creator of the stars. Your grief matters to me. Your sense of loss matters to me. The quiet, desperate prayers you have whispered through your tears, wondering if they simply hit the ceiling and bounce back to the floor, have all been recorded. Not one was lost. I want to dissolve that overwhelming sense of abandonment that has wrapped itself around your heart. I want to carefully peel back the layers of cynicism and the defensive walls you have constructed just to survive. You are so incredibly loved. You are intimately known. Every intricate detail of your personality, every quiet hope you are too afraid to speak aloud, and every hidden scar that still aches in the cold, I know them all, and I cherish you completely. My love for you is not conditional upon your perfection. My love is the solid foundation beneath your feet when everything else gives way. There is a sacred beauty in our shared tears. When you cry out to me in your darkest moments, it is an act of deep vulnerability that draws my spirit closer to you. You are inviting me into the raw, unpolished reality of your life. Do you remember the days when you felt a sudden, inexplicable peace wash over you, even for just a fleeting second, right in the middle of a panic? That was me. That was my hand, gently resting on your shoulder, reminding you that the storm may be raging violently, but you are safely anchored to a rock that cannot be moved. I am wrapping my arms around your shattered heart right now. I am speaking divine comfort into the empty spaces left behind by loss and disappointment. You do not have to navigate this dark valley completely blind. I am the lamp unto your feet, and I am the light that will guide you through the thickest fog. Even when you cannot see the next step, you can trust that my hand is firmly holding yours. The darkness feels heavy, but it is not permanent. It is a temporary shadow that must eventually yield to the dawn. But until the sun rises, I will sit with you in the midnight hour. I want you to feel the deep, unconditional nature of my compassion. Human empathy has its limits. People grow tired of hearing about the same struggles, and friends may eventually drift away when the season of suffering outlasts their patience. But I never grow weary of your voice. I never grow tired of your tears. You can come to me 1,000 times with the exact same fear, the exact same breaking heart, and you will always find my arms wide open, ready to receive you with the same infinite grace and mercy I offered you the very first time. You are never a burden to me. Breathe in the truth of my presence. Let it settle deep within your bones, replacing the bitter chill of loneliness with the warmth of divine companionship. You are seen. You are heard. You are entirely understood. The world may rush past you, demanding that you keep up the pace, but I am pulling you aside into a quiet, sacred sanctuary where you are permitted to simply be. Your brokenness does not intimidate me, nor does it disqualify you from experiencing the breathtaking beauty of my restorative grace. It is exactly through the cracks of your broken heart that my healing light will ultimately shine the brightest. So lay down the heavy burden of your brave face. Stop fighting the tears that need to fall. Let them flow freely into my hands. I am collecting every single one of them, holding them as precious testaments to the depth of your love and the reality of your pain. You have endured so much, my child. You have fought a brave, exhausting battle in the silent corridors of your mind. Now it is time for you to let me carry the weight for a while. It is time for you to experience the profound rest that comes from surrendering your hidden pain to a God who loves you fiercely. Rest in my embrace tonight, because even when you hear nothing but silence from heaven, My hands are already moving in the unseen, carefully orchestrating the beautiful purpose hidden just beneath the surface of your waiting. The silence you hear is not an empty void. My child, I know exactly how it feels. When you fall to your knees, pour out the deepest agony of your soul, and are met with what feels like a hollow, echoing stillness. You look around your quiet room, listening for a whisper, waiting for a sign, hoping for any indication that I have heard your desperate plea. But the room remains quiet. The circumstances remain unchanged. The heavy burden still rests squarely on your chest. I see the tears of frustration that slip down your face when days turn into weeks, and weeks bleed into months, with no visible movement on the horizon. I know the profound ache of an unanswered prayer. I know how the silence can feel like a cold, sharp rejection, a subtle suggestion that I have turned my face away from you and moved on to someone else. It is incredibly difficult to watch the people around you step into their seasons of joy and celebration, while you feel trapped in a waiting room with no visible exit. In that vast, quiet space of waiting, the enemy is so quick to whisper his favorite lies into your vulnerable heart. He waits until you are physically exhausted, until your hope is fragile. And then he tells you that this agonizing silence is entirely your fault. He points a long, accusing finger at your past mistakes, replaying your worst moments like a dark, relentless film in your mind. He reminds you of every time you stumbled, every promise you broke, and every moment your faith wavered under the crushing pressure of life. He tries to convince you that I am intentionally withholding my blessing because you have disqualified yourself from my grace. You begin to wonder if your faith is simply too small to move my hand. You secretly fear that you are being punished for the chapters of your life you desperately wish you could rewrite. You think that if only you had prayed harder, believed stronger, or lived more perfectly, the heavens would finally open for you. Let me speak directly to that heavy, suffocating shame right now, and let my truth completely shatter those invisible chains your past mistakes do not dictate my present mercy. My love for you is not a transactional business arrangement. I do not sit on a distant throne with a ledger in my hand, demanding a flawless performance from you before I agree to incline my ear to your cries. The silence you are experiencing is not a penalty for your imperfections. It is an intentional, purposeful, and profoundly loving pause. You must understand that in the spiritual realm, silence is never a sign of my absence. It is the sound of my hands quietly working in the dark. Human nature demands instant resolution. You want the pain to stop immediately, and you want the door to fly open the very second you knock. But my timing is not driven by the frantic panic of the world. My timing is driven by a perfect, infinite wisdom that sees the end from the beginning. I see the entire timeline of your life stretching from the moment you were perfectly formed until the day you finally come home to me. I see the countless moving parts that you cannot possibly perceive. There are variable circumstances in other hearts that must be carefully aligned before the answer can be safely delivered into your hands. Often what you perceive as a painful unanswered prayer is actually a massive impenetrable shield of protection. I am intentionally standing between you and unseen dangers that would absolutely devastate you if I gave you exactly what you asked for, exactly when you asked for it. You view the closed door as a rejection, but I view it as a merciful rescue. I am guarding you from the relationships that would break your spirit, the opportunities that would drain your peace, and the premature victories that would ultimately lead to your emotional defeat. I love you far too much to hand you a blessing before you are fully prepared to carry the immense weight of it. A premature miracle can easily become a crushing burden if your spiritual foundation has not been fortified enough to support it. If a tree grows too tall before its roots have pushed deep into the hidden earth, the very first strong wind will tear it from the ground. The silence you are enduring is the dark, nutrient-rich soil where your roots are being forced to grow deeper, stronger, and more resilient than they ever have before. This is precisely why I must do a deeper, more profound work within your soul before I change the landscape of your life. This is why my peace must absolutely come before my miracle. Listen to me carefully. My precious child, if I simply change your external circumstances, while your internal world is still completely ruled by fear, panic, and anxiety, the relief you feel will only be a temporary illusion. If I hand you the breakthrough right now, while your heart is still frantically trying to control every possible outcome, you would spend the rest of your days terrified of losing the very blessing I just gave you. You would cling desperately to the gift rather than resting securely in the giver. Your mind would remain a prisoner to worry, always bracing for impact, always waiting for the next disaster to strike. I do not want you to merely survive this current trial. I want you to emerge from it completely and totally transformed. I want you to experience a supernatural calm that remains perfectly steady, even when the ground beneath you shakes violently. When my peace takes deep root in your heart first, the miracle becomes a joyful addition to your life, rather than something you frantically depend on for your emotional survival. When your soul is anchored in me, you stop needing the circumstances to be perfect in order to feel safe. The waiting period you are walking through right now is not a prison sentence. It is a sacred incubation. It is the holy preparation of your spirit for the incredible heights I am going to take you to. So I am asking you to shift your perspective today. Do not be afraid of the quiet. Do not let the silence convince you that you have been abandoned, ignored, or forgotten in the wilderness. Instead, I invite you to become fiercely, beautifully curious about what I am quietly building in the unseen spaces of your life. Imagine the careful, meticulous craftsmanship required to prepare your heart for the magnificent glory I have planned for you. Every single day, you wait faithfully. Even when you feel like giving up, I am expanding your capacity to receive. I am fortifying your spirit, strengthening your mind, and gently untangling the deep, complicated knots of doubt that have kept you bound for so many years. You can stop interpreting this season as a cruel delay or a sign of my subtle disapproval. You are on the absolute verge of discovering that the God who seems quiet is actually the God who is profoundly busy on your behalf. Let this new understanding settle over you like a warm, comforting blanket. Allow it to soothe the anxious drumming of your heart and quiet the racing thoughts in your mind. As you begin to trust that I am constantly working in the shadows for your ultimate good, you will realize that you no longer need to exhaust yourself trying to force the sunrise, and you can finally begin to release the heavy grip you have kept on your own life. I see how tightly your hands are clenched. My child, you have held on to the illusion of control for so long that your fingers have grown completely numb. When you look at the broken circumstances surrounding you, your immediate instinct is to step in, take charge, and fiercely fix them. You believe that if you just run through every possible scenario in your mind until the sun comes up, you can somehow manufacture a logical way out of the wilderness. I watch you as you lie awake in the darkest hours of the night, your mind racing at a frantic, unstoppable pace. You map out every potential outcome. You create a backup plan for your backup plan, desperately trying to build a fortress of security around yourself and the people you love. But instead of finding security, you only find a deeper, more suffocating layer of anxiety. I feel the way your chest tightens when the pieces of your life refuse to fit together the way you so carefully designed them. You are carrying a crushing weight that I never intended for your fragile shoulders to bear. And the severe burnout you are experiencing is the physical evidence of a human soul trying to do the sovereign work of a Savior. The heavy yoke of self-reliance has bruised you deeply. My precious child, you have been walking through this dark valley, convinced that it is entirely your responsibility to pull yourself out of the mud. You think your survival depends solely on your own intellect, your own endurance, and your own ability to outsmart the enemy at every turn. This frantic, anxious striving has utterly exhausted your spirit. You are tired of pretending that you have everything figured out when you are secretly terrified that everything is rapidly falling apart. You are tired of fighting exhausting battles that I never once asked you to engage in. I want you to understand today that this obsessive need to control your circumstances is not a reflection of your true strength. It is a direct reflection of your hidden fear. You are terrified that if you finally stop trying to hold your entire world together, it will instantly shatter. You're afraid that if you drop the heavy burden, I will not be standing there to catch it. But I ask you to look at the actual fruit of your relentless striving. Has it brought you lasting peace? Has it shortened your painful season of waiting? The difficult truth is your frantic attempts to force a breakthrough are actually blocking the flow of my grace. When you insist on forcefully manipulating the circumstances to fit your own timeline, you leave no room for my supernatural intervention to unfold. Grace requires open, empty hands. But your hands are completely full right now, tightly gripping the steering wheel of your life, white-knuckled and desperate for a resolution. I cannot step in and perform the miraculous work I have planned for you while you are actively trying to do it all yourself. My absolute power is perfected in your absolute surrender, not in your isolating self-sufficiency. I am asking you today, with infinite love and profound compassion, to gently pry your fingers off the steering wheel. I am asking you to completely relinquish your desperate need to know exactly how the story ends before you are willing to turn the page. Total surrender is the most courageous decision you will ever make. It is not a sign of weakness. It is the ultimate triumphant declaration of trust. It is you admitting that your ways are not my ways, and that my infinite wisdom is far greater than your limited perspective. I know exactly how deeply terrifying it feels to lay down the yoke of control. The world has taught you to constantly fight the current, to swim as hard as you possibly can against the rushing tide, and to measure your worth by how much you can conquer entirely on your own. But in my holy kingdom, the rules are entirely different. In my kingdom, the only way to truly survive the flood is to stop fighting the current and allow my sovereign protective will to safely carry you. Imagine a tired swimmer caught in a powerful rip current. The harder they fight against the water, the faster their precious energy drains, and the closer they step toward defeat. But the very moment they stop fighting, the moment they surrender to the water and float, the current naturally and safely carries them to a place where they can finally find solid footing again. You have been fighting the heavy current for far too long. My child, you are swallowing water, physically exhausted, and dangerously close to giving up all hope. Please stop fighting. Let go. Allow the gentle, deeply purposeful river of my grace to carry you exactly where you need to be. This brings us directly back to the most vital foundational lesson of your spiritual journey. My peace must come before my miracle. True lasting relief does not begin the moment your physical circumstances magically change. True relief begins the exact second you completely surrender your timeline to me. When you finally accept that you cannot fix the shattered pieces of your life, the crushing pressure instantly evaporates. You no longer have to perform for anyone. You no longer have to strategize your next move in the dark. You step completely out of the frantic, deafening noise of your own anxiety and directly into the quiet, unshakable sanctuary of my presence. The magnificent miracle you are praying for is waiting for you just over the horizon, but I simply cannot hand it to a heart that is still drowning in panic. The breakthrough will only be safe in your hands when you have fully learned to be perfectly content, even when your hands are entirely empty. Laying down the yoke is the deliberate daily choice to say, even if the situation never changes, I will completely trust that God is holding me. In that profound space of total surrender, my supernatural peace will suddenly flood your mind. Let me carefully and lovingly dismantle the heavy wall of self-reliance you have built around yourself over the years. You do not need to be the strong hero of this story anymore. I am the hero. I am your fierce defender, your relentless provider, and your perfect healer. You are completely allowed to be weak. You are allowed to be bone-tired, exhausted. You are allowed to sit in the dirt, let the tears fall, and honestly admit that you have absolutely nothing left to give. The world may demand constant resilience, but I certainly do not. I look at your profound weariness with deep, unending compassion. I see the heavy, invisible toll that the financial hardships, the broken relationships, and the silent grief have taken on your physical and spiritual body. I do not ever expect you to run this brutal marathon without collapsing safely into my arms. In fact, it is exactly when you reach the final end of your own strength that you finally become positioned to experience the fullness of mine. Do not be ashamed of your desperate need for rescue. I intentionally designed you to need me. Close your tired eyes for a moment and visualize taking the heavy, splintered wooden yoke off your bruised shoulders. Picture yourself laying it carefully and permanently at my feet. Now take a long, deep breath. Feel the incredible sweeping lightness that washes over your entire being when you realize that the universe will not collapse just because you finally stop trying to hold it up. I am running the universe. I am managing every single intricate detail. I am fighting the massive unseen battles that you are entirely unaware of. Your only job right now is to rest. Your only profound responsibility is to abide securely in my unconditional, unfailing love. As you gently pry your fingers off the illusion of control, the suffocating anxiety that has tightened your chest will immediately begin to loosen its painful grip. You will quickly find that you are no longer chained to the terrifying, unpredictable nature of tomorrow. You are anchored firmly and securely in the unchanging reality of my perfect goodness. This profound, relieving surrender is the absolute necessary gateway to true, enduring spiritual rest. As you step completely out of your frantic striving and fully into my peaceful embrace, you are being beautifully prepared to walk securely into the refining fire of the valley, completely unburdened and perfectly sustained by my limitless grace. As you rest securely in that embrace, you can now look at the difficult path stretching out in front of you with a different kind of vision. The reality of your hardship has not vanished. I see the steep, rocky edges of the valley you are walking through, and I know exactly how intimidating the shadows appear. You have looked at this prolonged trial as a meaningless tragedy, an unfair string of broken events designed to break your spirit. The intense heat of this situation is undeniable, and I will never ask you to pretend that the flames do not burn. I see the days when the pressure is so heavy that you struggle to catch your breath, when the financial strain, relational fractures, or quiet grief feel completely suffocating. But I want to gently turn your face toward mine and show you what is actually happening in the midst of this intense heat. The fire you are walking through is not a fire of destruction. It is the sacred fire of spiritual refinement. When a master silversmith places precious metal into the furnace, he doesn't do it because he hates the silver. He places it in the searing heat because he knows its immense inherent value. He knows the only way to draw out its breathtaking brilliance is to let the fire separate the pure metal from the heavy impurities that tarnish its beauty. You are that precious silver, my child. This agonizing season is not a reflection of my anger, nor is it a punishment for your past. It is a deeply intentional tool I am using to forge within you an unshakable, enduring faith. The flames you fear are merely stripping away the fragile dependencies that have hindered your true spiritual growth for so long. Think about all the things you used to rely on for your sense of security before this valley began. You relied on predictable routines, the approval of others, financial numbers, or the illusion that you were in charge of your destiny. The heat is burning away those fragile foundations. I am allowing the things that can be shaken to be shaken, so that only what is completely unshakable will remain. I know the process is incredibly painful. It hurts to let go of the coping mechanisms you have hidden behind for years. It hurts to stand spiritually exposed in the middle of a wilderness, feeling as though you have nothing left to lean on. But you are not losing your identity in this fire. You are finally discovering it. You are shedding the restrictive armor of fear and stepping out as the resilient warrior I designed you to be. Even as I speak these words, I know there is a part of you still terrified that the flames will eventually consume you. You look at the rising smoke and wonder how much longer you can endure this intensity before your strength gives out. Let my voice be the loudest reality in your mind. Right now, you will not be consumed. The fire will not burn you, and the rushing waters will not sweep you away. I have placed a divine boundary around your soul. The enemy wants you to believe that this valley is your final resting place, that you will wander in this darkness until all your hope bleeds out onto the dusty ground. But I am carefully regulating the temperature of this furnace, and my eye never leaves the silver. I know exactly how much pressure you can handle, and I will pull you from the heat at the perfect second. The deepest source of your anxiety right now is your profound fear of the unknown. You cannot see past the next bend in the road. The fog of uncertainty makes every single step feel like a dangerous gamble. You are worried about the unexpected traps hiding in the shadows and the silent battles waiting for you tomorrow. My precious child, you are carrying fear for a tomorrow that I have already secured. I am not just walking beside you in this valley. I have already walked the entire length of the path ahead of you. I have already stepped into your future, and I have personally cleared the snares that were set to trap your feet. The obstacles that were designed to cause your permanent ruin have already been dismantled by my hand. Because I have cleared the path ahead, I need you to learn how to change the way you walk through this current darkness. When waves of pain and panic wash over you, your immediate instinct is to tense every muscle and desperately fight your way back to the surface. But panic will only exhaust the energy you need to endure. I want to teach you how to breathe through the pain rather than panicking in the midst of it. When the sharp ache of disappointment hits your chest, do not quickly run to distractions. Instead, sit entirely still. Take a slow, deep breath of my grace and exhale your desperate need to understand. Let the pain wash over you, acknowledge its heavy presence, and then tether your mind to the solid rock of my presence. This is the quiet strength I am forging inside of you. This is why you must continually remember the core truth we have established. My peace must anchor you completely before the external miracle ever manifests. If you spend this entire valley screaming at the darkness waiting for the day I finally pull you out, you will miss the magnificent treasure I have hidden inside the cave. The miracle is coming. I promise you that. The dawn will break, and the heavy chains will shatter. But the most important work of this season is not getting you out of the fire. The most important work is who you become while you are still inside it. I am teaching you how to maintain a perfectly steady heartbeat when the world around you is completely falling apart. For so long, the constant exhausting narrative playing inside your mind has been a desperate tear-stained question. Why is this happening to me? You have analyzed every past decision searching for a logical explanation for this suffering. I am asking you today to permanently drop that unanswerable question. Replace it right now with a completely different, infinitely more powerful question. What is God building within me? When you shift your perspective from the external tragedy to the internal construction, everything changes. The delay no longer feels like a cruel punishment. It feels like necessary preparation. The deep ache of loneliness no longer feels like abandonment. It feels like the quiet, sacred space where you and I are building an intimacy that the world could never offer you. What I am building within you is absolutely breathtaking, my child. I am building a profound, resilient hope that is no longer dependent on perfect circumstances. The faith that is currently surviving this brutal fire is going to be the exact same faith that moves massive mountains in your next season. The profound empathy and compassion currently bleeding from your broken heart will become the very medicine I use to heal the broken hearts of the people you will soon encounter. Nothing in this desolate valley is being wasted. Every tear, every sleepless night, every moment you chose to simply whisper my name when you actually wanted to completely give up. It is all being beautifully, meticulously woven into a magnificent tapestry of redemption. Do not rush this sacred process. Look closely at the flames around you and recognize them for what they truly are. They are not the glowing embers of your destruction, but the brilliant lights of your spiritual transformation. You are growing stronger with every step you take through the ashes. As you breathe through the heat of this valley, the agonizing question of why will naturally fade away, replaced by an eager anticipation of what I am bringing to life. You are no longer a victim of meaningless circumstances. You are a chosen participant in a holy forging. This resilient hope is the bedrock upon which your future will be built. You have stopped fighting the current, and you are no longer running from the flames. You are finally standing still, letting the heat do its perfect work, and allowing your weary heart to be reshaped by my loving hands. As the last shadows of your resistance gently burn away, you are perfectly positioned to experience a complete internal stillness that defies logical understanding, anchoring your soul entirely in the unshakable reality of my perfect peace. Now that you are standing still, I want to lead you deeper into that unshakable reality, into the center of the sanctuary I have prepared for your weary mind. This is the sacred space where external chaos completely loses its power over you. I know how loudly the storms of life are raging just outside your door. You can still hear the thunder, and the wind is still battering the walls of your current circumstances. But here, deeply enveloped in my presence, there is a profound, holy silence, true freedom. My child is not found by suddenly escaping the storm. It is discovered when the storm is no longer allowed to dictate the condition of your heart. You have begged me to calm the wind and quiet the crashing waves, convinced that a sudden change in your environment is the only way you will ever feel safe again. But I must teach you a vital spiritual truth today. If I were to grant the exact miracle you are desperately asking for, while your heart is still frantically driven by fear, that blessing would not bring you the relief you desire. You would immediately lose the joy of the miracle to the crushing weight of anxiety. You would spend every waking moment terrified that the blessing might be taken away, meticulously guarding it with the same exhausted white-knuckled grip you used to guard your pain. A fearful heart cannot sustain a divine blessing. If your internal world is still ruled by worldly panic, the arrival of your breakthrough would only give your anxiety a new subject to worry about. This is exactly why my peace absolutely must take full root in your soul before the physical manifestation of my miracle is released into your hands. I am actively protecting you from the tragic exhaustion of living in constant survival mode. I want you entirely free from the mental loops of worry that keep you staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m, replaying conversations and calculating disaster scenarios over and over again. I see those endless midnight hours, my precious child. I watch as the quiet of the night, which I designed for your gentle restoration, becomes a brutal battleground for your mind. The enemy whispers dark scenarios into your thoughts, trying to convince you that tragedy is inevitable. He uses your vivid imagination against you, projecting terrifying illusions of failure, financial ruin, and permanent isolation on the walls of your mind. He wants to keep you trapped in a perpetual state of spiritual dizziness, unable to distinguish between his vicious lies and my unwavering truth. Today, I am giving you the divine authority to arrest those spiraling thoughts and completely dismantle them. When that familiar wave of panic begins to rise in your chest, I do not want you to simply brace for the impact and hope you survive it. I want you to actively fight back, not with your own fragile willpower, but with the unshakable anchor of my spoken word. The moment the mental loop of anxiety starts spinning, immediately speak my name aloud. Speak it into the quiet darkness of your room. Whisper it when you are driving in your car. Declare it when the overwhelming pressure threatens to steal your breath, simply saying, my name shifts your focus from the massive waves crashing against your boat to the Creator who commands the sea. I am inviting you to aggressively replace your worldly panic with heavenly security. Worldly panic demands immediate explanations, flawless backup plans, and visible proof that everything is going to be all right. It tells you that if you cannot see the solution, there is no solution. But heavenly security operates entirely in the profound realm of trust. It is the quiet, confident assurance that I am faithfully holding the absolute worst-case scenarios in the palm of my hand, and they cannot reach you without my permission. You do not need to figure out tomorrow, because I'm already standing there fully prepared to provide exactly what you need the moment you arrive. There is an impenetrable shelter found only in my presence, and I want you to move in and dwell there. This shelter is not a physical place you have to travel to. It is a spiritual posture you carry within your own soul. When you abide in me, you begin to view your towering problems through the lens of my absolute sovereignty. The intimidating giants that have mocked your faith suddenly shrink when measured against the limitless magnitude of my power. In this holy shelter, the harsh opinions of others lose their sting. The fear of failure completely dissolves because your entire identity is eternally anchored in my unconditional love. The peace I am offering you defies all human logic. The world around you will look at your unbroken trial, see the massive obstacles still standing in your path, and wonder how you are not completely falling apart. They will expect you to be bitter, exhausted, and consumed by grief. But instead, they will witness a supernatural calm radiating from your spirit. They will see you smiling softly in the middle of the valley. They will watch you sleep soundly through the most violent parts of the storm. This is the undeniable evidence of a soul intimately touched by the living God. It is a peace that the world simply cannot give, and therefore it absolutely cannot take it away. I want you to stop checking the horizon every 5 minutes to see if the miracle has finally arrived. Constantly monitoring your external circumstances only feeds the anxiety we're working so hard to eradicate. I am asking you to shift your entire focus inward exclusively onto the condition of your heart rather than the condition of your life. Let the broken pieces of your situation sit quietly on the floor. You do not need to assemble them today. Instead, let me carefully rebuild the fragile, shattered pieces of your inner world. Let me pour the soothing oil of my spirit over the deep, unseen wounds of disappointment and spiritual fatigue. As you allow my peace to permeate every hidden corner of your soul, you will begin to experience something absolutely beautiful. A deep, fulfilling joy, right in the middle of your unbroken trial. You have falsely believed that joy is a destination you can only reach after the pain entirely stops. You thought you had to put your happiness on a permanent hold until your bank account recovered, the relationship was perfectly restored, or the grief completely vanished. But I am showing you today that true freedom is an inside job beautifully initiated by my loving spirit. You can genuinely laugh, genuinely rest, and genuinely celebrate right now exactly where you are, in the very heart of the wilderness. This is the ultimate liberation of the human spirit. When you realize that your deep abiding contentment is entirely independent of external circumstances, the enemy completely loses his leverage over you. What can he possibly threaten you with when you have already discovered that my presence is more than enough to sustain you? If he threatens poverty, you know I am your provider. If he threatens isolation, you know I am your eternal companion. If he threatens prolonged waiting, you have already found the exquisite sweetness of resting in my timing. You have become spiritually untouchable, fiercely guarded by a peace that completely transcends human understanding. Breathe deeply into this profound spiritual stillness. Feel the chaotic noise of your own expectations fading into the distance. You are no longer grasping for control, and you are no longer crushed by the terrifying weight of the unknown. You are simply sitting with me, anchored in the safety of this present moment. Let the soothing reality of my constant, unwavering love wash over your mind, rinsing away the heavy residue of yesterday's failures and tomorrow's anxieties. You are deeply cherished, intimately understood, and perfectly protected within the fortress of my grace. The miracle is coming, but you no longer need it to survive, because your soul has already found its complete fulfillment in me. As this supernatural peace begins to settle permanently over your spirit, creating an unshakable foundation that the storms of life can no longer disturb, I want to gently draw closer to the tender, bruised places you still try to hide from me. Even in this beautiful stillness, I see the lingering shadows of spiritual guilt you carry for the times you questioned. My goodness, when the pain felt unbearable. You have secretly carried the heavy shame of your own doubts, wondering if your moments of fragile faith have somehow disappointed me or fractured our relationship. But I want to reach deeply into those hidden wounds of disappointment, unwrap the painful lies you have believed, and completely wash away the profound guilt you have carried for simply being human. There is a quiet, heavy shame that you wear entirely on the inside, a silent guilt you have carried for simply being human. You have believed the harsh assumption that a perfect, faithful believer never questions, never breaks down, and never looks at the sky with a heart full of frustration. When you cried out in agony over delayed answers and broken dreams, you secretly thought you were pushing me away. You believed your moments of intense doubt had somehow built an invisible, impenetrable wall between us. You thought your anger was a profound failure that disappointed me deeply. But let me speak a liberating truth directly into your weary spirit. Right now, your honest questions do not offend me in the slightest. I am the creator of the universe. I am not intimidated by your grief, nor am I ever threatened by your frustration. When you beat your fists against the floor and desperately ask me, why, you are not displaying a lack of faith. You are actually demonstrating a raw, beautiful desire for profound intimacy. You are bringing your real, unpolished heart to me instead of hiding behind a safe religious mask. I would always prefer your angry, tear-stained honesty over a polite, artificial performance. The enemy has seized upon those moments of intense vulnerability to plant toxic seeds of spiritual guilt deep in your mind. He has whispered dark, manipulative lies into your ear during the hours when you were entirely too exhausted to fight back. He told you that because you doubted I have quietly walked away from you. He told you that I have chosen others over you, that the people around you are receiving their miracles simply because they possess a better, stronger faith than you do. The enemy desperately wants you to look at the closed doors in your life and logically conclude that your pain is a permanent destination. He wants you to believe that this dark valley is the final chapter of your story, a definitive proof of your spiritual inadequacy. I want to completely untangle those vicious lies right now, gently pulling them from your mind, like weeds from a garden. My love for you is not a competitive race, and my grace is not a limited resource that miraculously runs out before it reaches your front door. When you see others being blessed and celebrating their victories while you are still waiting in the lonely wilderness, it is absolutely not a sign of my rejection. It simply means their timeline is different from yours. Their chapter of harvest has arrived, but your season of profound necessary preparation is still beautifully underway. I have not forgotten you. My precious child, I have never once looked away from the intricate, fragile details of your life. Think about the ancient promises recorded in my word, the enduring covenants that have stood the test of time. I am the exact same God who made an unbreakable promise to Abraham beneath a vast canopy of desert stars. I am the God who remained fiercely faithful to David while he hid in dark caves waiting years for a promise to be fulfilled. My promises do not have an expiration date, and they are certainly not dependent on your ability to maintain a perfectly positive attitude every single day. When I speak a promise over your life, it is anchored entirely in my unchanging, flawless character, not in your fluctuating human emotions. Even on the days when your faith feels completely shattered and you cannot muster a single word of praise, my faithfulness to you remains entirely intact. I do not abandon my children when they stumble in the dark. I know there have been long, agonizing days when you could not feel my presence at all. The silence in the room was deafening, and the heavy weight of disappointment made it physically impossible to lift your eyes toward heaven. You felt an overwhelming sense of spiritual inadequacy, convinced that if you just tried a little harder, prayed a little longer, or believed a little better, you would finally be able to feel me standing near. But my child, your ability to feel me does not dictate the reality of my steadfast presence. Feelings are fragile, shifting like the wind. But my promise to never leave you is a permanent anchor. Even when your vision is completely clouded by hot tears, and you lack the faith to clearly see my hand at work, I want you to know that my tears are flowing right alongside yours. I am the God who weeps with you. I am holding you together when you feel like you are entirely falling apart, gently sustaining your spirit, even when you are completely unaware of my touch. You have carried this exhausting, heavy belief that you need a massive, towering faith in order for me to intervene on your behalf. You look at your fragile, battered trust and think it is simply too small to catch my attention. But I do not require a massive, unwavering faith from you. I only ask for a faith the size of a tiny mustard seed. That small, fragile seed, even if it is deeply bruised, even if it is buried under a massive mountain of earthly disappointment, is more than enough for me to work with. When you bring me that tiny seed and whisper, "Lord, this is all I have left," I receive it as the most beautiful, precious offering you could ever give. I can move massive, intimidating mountains with the very faith you consider to be broken and inadequate. The power does not come from the size of your faith. It comes entirely from the sheer magnitude of the God you place that tiny faith in. So I am asking you to let go of the heavy spiritual guilt today. Release the suffocating shame you have carried for simply being exhausted by the relentless battle. I am lovingly, tenderly washing away every ounce of your feelings of spiritual inadequacy right now. You do not ever need to apologize for the nights you felt like completely giving up. You do not need to repent for the bitter tears of frustration you shed when the beautiful dream you held so tightly seemed to shatter into 1,000 unfixable pieces in your hands. I have carefully collected every single one of those tears. I have held your broken dreams with the utmost tenderness, knowing full well that I am going to build something far more magnificent and enduring out of the shattered pieces. I am a God of restoration, and I specialize in making beautiful things out of the dust. I want you to understand that our relationship is not fractured by your moments of doubt. It is actually deepened by your willingness to be vulnerable with me. I want you to feel a massive, heavy burden lifting completely off your tired shoulders in this very moment. The invisible wall of shame that you thought stood between us is completely collapsing under the weight of my unconditional love. You are fully forgiven for the moments you lost sight of my goodness, and you are unconditionally loved right here, right now, in the exact middle of your mess. I am pulling you intimately close to my heart, wrapping you in a grace so profound and so absolute that it permanently silences the accusing, condemning whispers of the enemy. You are entirely safe with me. You do not have to pretend to be strong anymore. As this deep, profound spiritual healing takes place within the hidden chambers of your heart, you'll begin to feel a renewed, beautiful sense of trust beginning to take root. It is not a fragile, naive trust that ignores the harsh reality of the pain you have endured. Instead, it is a mature, battle-tested trust that confidently says, even when I do not understand the plan, I completely trust the flawless character of the one who holds the pen. This is the beautiful, unshakable foundation we are rebuilding together in the quietness of this sanctuary. I am making your wounded heart entirely open and soft again. I am intentionally replacing the bitter, heavy cynicism of prolonged disappointment with the gentle, radiant warmth of heavenly anticipation. You are no longer standing alone in the cold shadows of guilt. You are stepping out into the brilliant, healing light of my unconditional acceptance. Your heart is now perfectly prepared, completely swept clean of the debilitating lies that have held you captive for far too long. As we walk forward together out of this place of inner healing, you will slowly begin to realize that your honest struggles and painful doubts did not disqualify you from the breakthrough you are seeking. They actually paved the necessary road for it. With your spiritual foundation securely rebuilt, your profound guilt entirely washed away, and your trust beautifully, completely restored, you are now ready to completely change the way you navigate this season of waiting, transforming it from a painful, agonizing delay into a powerful, active posture of faithful expectation. That powerful, active posture of faithful expectation is the exact opposite of how the world has taught you to wait. To the human mind, waiting feels like a frustrating, sterile waiting room where absolutely nothing of value occurs. You feel stuck, staring at the clock, watching the days fall off the calendar, believing your life is on a cruel, indefinite pause, while everyone else seems to be moving effortlessly forward. You have viewed this delay as a dark place where your dreams are slowly drying up. But in my kingdom, my child, waiting is never a passive, agonizing delay. It is a profoundly dynamic season of spiritual growth. It is the holy, unseen workshop where I am meticulously crafting the internal strength you will absolutely need to sustain the massive blessing I am preparing for you. I want to entirely change the way you view this sacred space between the promise I made to you and the ultimate physical fulfillment of it. I see the quiet exhaustion that settles deep into your bones when you watch others receive the very things you have been desperately praying for. I know exactly how much it hurts. You scroll through photographs on your screen, you hear the joyous announcements of others at family gatherings or in church, and while you force yourself to smile and offer polite congratulations, your fragile heart breaks a little more on the inside. You watch them step into restored marriages, secure financial freedom, or experience physical healing, and you secretly retreat to your room, wondering why you have been left behind in the valley. The enemy uses these moments of intense vulnerability to whisper that I have favorites, that I am playing a cruel, arbitrary game of exclusion with your life. But I tell you right now, watching others step brightly into their harvest is absolutely not a sign that your own field has been cursed, ignored, or permanently abandoned. Their timeline is simply different from yours, because their unique calling, their internal foundation, and their ultimate purpose require an entirely different kind of spiritual preparation. If you constantly compare your quiet season of plowing to their celebrated season of reaping, you will entirely miss the sacred beauty of what I am doing in your own life. Waiting is the fertile dirt where your spiritual character is beautifully and permanently developed. When you plant a tiny, precious seed, you do not see any activity on the surface of the earth for a very long time. If you dig it up every single day, out of impatience, you will ultimately kill the fragile root system before it anchors itself. I am asking you, my precious child, to trust the dark, quiet soil of this current season. The invisible roots of your faith are currently pushing deeper into the bedrock of my grace than they ever possibly could have in the bright, easy sunlight. You must have deep, unshakable roots to safely hold the immense weight of the future I've designed for you. If I hand you the breakthrough before your character has expanded its capacity to manage it, the blessing would eventually crush your spirit. The season of delay you have been so desperately trying to escape is actually my fiercely protective hand, ensuring that when the heavy door finally swings open, you will not stumble or collapse across the threshold. I am actively, lovingly preparing you to handle the magnificent weight of an answered prayer without losing your peace in the process. Therefore, I want you to completely stop viewing yourself as a helpless, forgotten victim of difficult circumstances and start seeing yourself as a deeply valued active participant in this divine preparation. Active waiting means you deliberately begin to prepare your heart and your physical environment for the change you are praying for, even before you see a single rain cloud. If you are praying for a massive downpour, you do not just sit passively in the cracked dirt complaining about the heat. You go out into the dry field and start faithfully digging the trenches to catch the water. You actively prepare the space in your life to receive the miracle. If you are praying for financial restoration, you begin faithfully stewarding the few pennies you currently have with absolute integrity. If you are praying for a healed relationship, you begin practicing the gentle art of forgiveness right now, sweeping your heart entirely clean of all lingering bitterness. This requires a bold, courageous faith. It means you wake up every single morning and consciously choose to align your thoughts, your words, and your daily habits with the unchangeable reality of my promises. You permanently stop speaking the heavy language of defeat and you start boldly speaking the language of joyful expectation. This active participation is what it truly means to praise me in the dark hallway, long before the door finally opens. Authentic praise is not just a happy reaction to a suddenly favorable circumstance. It is a profound, strategic weapon of spiritual warfare. When you stand right in the middle of a dark, seemingly endless hallway, completely unsure of which door will open or when, the agonizing wait will finally conclude, and you bravely choose to lift your hands in genuine gratitude. Anyway, you absolutely shatter the heavy chains of despair. Your praise in the waiting room is a magnificent, defiant declaration to the darkness that your joy is not held hostage by your external situation. It proves to the enemy, and more importantly, it proves to your own anxious heart, that having my presence in the hallway is entirely enough for you. This glorious realization brings us directly back to the most critical foundational truth you must hold on to for the rest of your life. My peace must completely anchor your soul before my miracle can safely rest in your hands. If you cannot find a way to be deeply content and spiritually grounded out here in the hallway, you will never be truly satisfied once you are finally allowed inside the room. I want to elevate your spiritual maturity today so that you no longer treat your daily life as something to merely survive until the next good thing miraculously happens. I want you to find deep, authentic, sustaining joy right now in this very present moment. The person you are becoming in the quiet friction of this waiting season is just as incredibly important to me as the magnificent destination you are hoping to reach. Look closely at the quiet, beautiful transformations that are already happening within you. You are noticeably softer now. You are infinitely more compassionate. Your daily prayers are no longer frantic, demanding lists of urgent requests, but intimate, honest, and loving conversations with your Creator. You have finally learned how to sit still in the silence without completely unraveling into panic. You have learned how to offer genuine grace to others who are hurting because you now deeply understand the devastating ache of a hidden, bleeding wound. These are not minor achievements to be brushed aside. These are massive, miraculous victories of the human soul. You are steadily becoming a vessel of pure, refined gold, absolutely ready to be filled to the very brim with the living water of my loving Spirit. Do not rush past this sacred becoming. Completely embrace the active posture of faithful waiting today. Wake up tomorrow with a renewed, vibrant sense of purpose, knowing that every single day you remain steadfast and refuse to quit. You are building an enduring legacy of faith that will bless generations. Let your weary heart overflow with profound gratitude for the invisible, meticulous work I am flawlessly accomplishing entirely behind the scenes. Start looking intentionally for the small, quiet blessings I have lovingly scattered throughout your day. The gentle warmth of the morning sun on your face. The unexpected kindness of a passing friend. The sudden unexplainable wave of deep comfort that washes over your entire body when you simply whisper, "My name." These are the gentle, constant assurances that I am walking the entire length of the hallway right beside you. As you fully and completely embrace this dynamic season, the heavy, agonizing burden of earthly impatience will finally begin to lift from your tired shoulders. You will no longer feel trapped by your circumstances, but rather beautifully and securely anchored by my love. You will no longer view the passing time as a cruel thief stealing your youth or your opportunities, but as a skilled master artisan, carefully sculpting your life into a breathtaking masterpiece. You are safely, permanently held in the palm of my right hand, and my perfect timing for your life is completely, beautifully flawless. With your heart now actively engaged in this faithful anticipation, and your renewed spirit finding genuine joy in the present moment, we must now turn our attention to confront and permanently silence the lingering shadows of fear that still attempt to steal your newfound courage. These shadows of fear often creep into your room when the sun goes down, when the quietness of the house amplifies the anxious beating of your heart. The enemy knows he cannot physically remove you from my hand, so he tries to terrorize your mind instead. He projects terrifying illusions onto the walls of your imagination, attempting to drag your weary spirit right back into the suffocating pit of despair you just climbed out of. I see the way your breathing changes when those thoughts arrive. I see the invisible weight that suddenly drops onto your chest when you are entirely alone, leaving you feeling incredibly vulnerable. I know exactly what these specific fears look like. My child, there is the looming fear of permanent failure, the paralyzing thought that you have ruined your life and that it is simply too late to recover. There is the terrifying specter of financial ruin, the persistent calculation of numbers that never add up, whispering that you will soon lose everything you have worked so hard to build. And then perhaps the most painful of all, there is the heavy shadow of endless isolation, the deep-seated dread that you are fundamentally unlovable, that everyone will eventually leave you, and that you will walk the rest of your days on this earth entirely alone. I want to speak a profound, unshakable truth directly into the center of those terrifying illusions right now. I have not given you a spirit of timidity, cowardice, or fear. That paralyzing anxiety you feel tightening around your throat does not come from me. The spirit I have carefully placed inside of you is a spirit of absolute power, of unconditional love, and of a perfectly sound, disciplined mind. The enemy has tried to convince you that your mind is permanently broken, that your anxiety is simply a terminal condition you must learn to survive. But I declare to you today that your mind belongs entirely to me, and it is fully equipped to experience enduring peace. You must recognize the enemy's tactics for exactly what they are: elaborate, terrifying smoke and mirrors. He has absolutely no real authority to touch your future, so he violently attacks your present perception of it. He wants you to surrender your peace voluntarily by agreeing with his lies. But fear only derives its power from your agreement with it. The very moment you stop agreeing with the fear of failure, the fear of poverty, and the fear of abandonment, those shadows instantly lose their suffocating grip on your life. You are a fully armed warrior of the kingdom of light. It is time for you to learn how to actively silence these voices of defeat. You cannot fight this psychological battle passively, simply hoping the dark thoughts will eventually drift away on their own. When the whisper of financial ruin tries to keep you awake, you must boldly and audibly declare my truth over your circumstances. You must open your mouth in the quiet of your room and say, "My God is my ultimate provider, and he has never once failed to sustain me." When the terrifying thought of permanent isolation attempts to break your heart, you must immediately counter it by declaring, I am unconditionally loved by the Creator of the universe, and He will never leave me. Fight the invisible lies of the enemy with the absolute spoken truth of my word. This active declaration is how you begin to build an impenetrable mental fortress against panic. Every time you choose to speak my promises out loud, instead of quietly meditating on your anxieties, you are laying another heavy, unshakable stone in the wall of your defense. You are aggressively taking every terrifying thought captive and forcing it to bow in complete submission to my ultimate authority. When the familiar rush of anxiety attempts to hijack your nervous system, do not automatically shrink back. Stand up square, your shoulders. Take a deep breath of my grace and command the fear to leave. You have the divine authority to govern the atmosphere of your own mind, and I am standing right beside you, completely backing every word. You must deeply understand that I hold the entirety of your future securely in the palm of my hand. The enemy does not possess the pen that writes your story. He cannot dictate the final outcome of your finances. He cannot determine the ultimate success of your calling. And he certainly cannot steal the beautiful relationships I have destined for your life. He is a defeated, desperate liar, attempting to intimidate you into forfeiting a victory that has already been guaranteed by my grace. Your destiny is guarded by heavenly forces that you cannot even comprehend. Even if the absolute worst-case scenario that you have endlessly worried about were to miraculously occur, you would instantly find me standing right there in the middle of it, completely prepared to carry you through. Look back at your history with me. Have I ever abandoned you to the wolves? You have survived 100% of your darkest days, not because you were independently strong enough, but because my protective presence was continuously shielding your fragile spirit from complete destruction. Let that flawless track record completely dismantle the shadows of fear right now. The same God who miraculously sustained you through the excruciating pain of your past is the exact same God who is already actively preparing the glorious landscape of your future. You can confidently trust me with tomorrow because I am already there, carefully arranging every detail for your ultimate good. Feel the heavy, restrictive chains of anxiety beginning to violently snap and fall entirely away from your mind. The terrifying invisible weight that has been pressing down on your chest for months is finally lifting. You are stepping completely out of the paralyzing fog of what-ifs and stepping firmly into the brilliant, unshakable reality of even if. Even if the road remains difficult, even if the bank account is completely empty right now, even if the people you trusted have entirely walked away, you remain completely secure, profoundly loved, and divinely protected. Fear simply has no legal right to occupy the sacred space of your heart anymore. You are officially evicting the shadows and inviting the radiant light of my perfect peace to fill every single empty corner. This divine courage is not the absence of difficult circumstances. It is the absolute certainty that you are infinitely greater than any circumstance you will ever face, because my spirit permanently resides within you. The peace I have meticulously planted in the deep soil of your soul is infinitely stronger, far more resilient, and massively more powerful than any terrifying threat the world could possibly throw your way. When the storms of life inevitably rage outside your window, your internal world will remain completely steady, anchored to a bedrock of unwavering trust. You will no longer flinch at sudden bad news, and you will no longer spend your precious energy constantly bracing for disaster. You are shielded. You are profoundly emboldened. You are finally ready to stand absolutely firm against the darkness. Take a moment to genuinely celebrate this monumental shift in your spiritual posture. You are no longer the exhausted, terrified victim cowering in the corner of the valley. You are a deeply cherished, fiercely protected child of the Most High God, walking boldly through the wilderness with your head held high. You have looked the terrifying shadows of failure and isolation directly in the eyes, and you have watched them completely dissolve under the overwhelming magnitude of my presence. The mental loops of endless worry have been entirely silenced, beautifully replaced by the steady, comforting rhythm of my grace. You have successfully built your fortress, and your mind is finally safe, completely insulated from the enemy's desperate attempts to drag you back into the agonizing pain of your past. Now that the heavy chains of anxiety have been completely broken and your mental fortress is utterly secure, I want to gently draw you even deeper into the magnificent beauty of our relationship. You have learned to trust me in the dark, and you have learned to bravely fight off the terrifying shadows of fear. But our connection was never meant to simply be a strategic partnership for your survival. I want to lead you away from the exhausting noise of the spiritual battlefield and directly into the profound, quiet sweetness of our unconditional fellowship, where your desire for my presence finally and beautifully eclipses your desperate need for the miracle itself. This profound, quiet sweetness is where the true beauty of our relationship is entirely revealed, completely independent of any answered prayers or suddenly changed circumstances. For so long you have approached my throne with your hands full of urgent requests, your mind frantically reviewing a checklist of problems that desperately need my immediate intervention. You have been taught by the world to treat your faith like an exhausting transaction, a spiritual business arrangement, where you offer me your flawless obedience, your perfect attendance, and your agonizing waiting. And in return, you expect me to dispense the exact miracle you ordered. I see how incredibly draining that transactional mindset has been for your weary soul. It turns your sacred prayer time into a stressful performance, where you feel you must constantly convince me to bless you carefully, calculating whether you have accumulated enough spiritual credit to finally earn a breakthrough. I want to completely dismantle that exhausting burden right now and invite you into a perfectly restful, unconditional romance of the human soul. I do not want our relationship to be defined by what I can do for you or what you can accomplish for me. I simply want you. I want your heart. I want the quiet, unpolished, beautiful reality of your presence, exactly as you are. There is a breathtaking, profound joy that fills my heart when you come into your room, gently close the door behind you, sit down on the floor, and ask me for absolutely nothing but my company. Think about the profound difference between a business associate and a fiercely devoted friend. A business associate only calls when they need a favor, when there is a complex problem to solve, or when there is a transaction to negotiate. But a true unconditional friend will sit with you in complete silence on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, perfectly content just to share the exact same space without uttering a single word. I want to be exactly that kind of friend to you. I want to be the one you run to, not just when the roof is suddenly caving in, but when the morning sun is shining brightly and you simply want to share the quiet beauty of the dawn with someone who truly understands the deepest parts of your soul. As you begin to let go of the frantic need to constantly present me with a list of demands, you will discover that the true, enduring riches of my kingdom are found entirely in knowing me, not just in receiving from me. The gifts I give are beautiful, and I deeply love blessing my children, but the gifts are never meant to replace the giver. If your entire relationship with me is built solely on the miracles I perform, your faith will always be incredibly fragile, constantly fluctuating, based on how quickly I answer your prayers. But when your faith is built entirely on the profound, intimate knowledge of my character, when you fall deeply in love with my presence, simply for who I am, your spiritual foundation becomes absolutely unshakable. You begin to understand the massive, liberating truth that we have been building toward. Having me standing right next to you in the middle of the blazing fire is infinitely better than miraculously escaping the fire, but having to walk away without me. This is the absolute pinnacle of your spiritual growth, my precious child. When you reach the point where your desire for my comforting presence beautifully and completely eclipses your desperate need for the external miracle, you have found the ultimate freedom. You suddenly realize that the worst thing the enemy could ever do to you is not to steal your money, ruin your reputation, or delay your breakthrough. The only true tragedy would be to navigate this life without the sweetness of my fellowship. Because you have me, you already possess everything of eternal value. You have the Creator of the universe actively listening to your quietest whispers, gently catching your falling tears, and fiercely guarding your fragile heart with an unconditional, passionate love that defies all human comprehension. You have stopped looking at the terrifying flames surrounding you, and you have finally locked your eyes entirely on mine. In this sacred space of unconditional fellowship, we share a profound, unbroken intimacy that the world simply cannot replicate and cannot destroy. We share the quiet comfort of your deepest tears, and we share the joyful, unseen victories of your daily endurance. I remember the exact moment you first realized I was weeping with you in the dark, when the devastating ache of your loneliness was finally met by the overwhelming warmth of my compassion. That shared sorrow created a beautiful, unbreakable bond between us. And now, as you sit with me in the quietness of your room, no longer demanding answers or begging for an immediate escape, we are sharing a glorious, silent victory. You are proving that my love is entirely sufficient for you right here in the exact middle of your unbroken trial. You are deeply, profoundly satisfied with my presence alone, and that exquisite satisfaction is the greatest worship you could ever possibly offer me. The profound beauty of this realization is that it completely removes the agonizing pressure of the waiting season. You are no longer holding your breath, desperately putting your actual life on hold until the physical breakthrough finally arrives on your doorstep. You are actively, beautifully living right now, deeply engaged in a vibrant daily romance with my spirit. You wake up every single morning with a gentle smile, not because your external circumstances have miraculously changed overnight, but because you absolutely know that you are deeply, unconditionally cherished. You walk through the ordinary routines of your day, washing the dishes, driving to work, sitting quietly in the evening, with a profound sense of divine companionship. The heavy, suffocating loneliness that once defined your darkest nights has been permanently replaced by the sweet, constant reality that you are completely enveloped in my grace. I want you to pause right now and truly let the sheer magnitude of this beautiful reality wash completely over your weary soul. You have already received the absolute greatest gift that could ever be given in this universe. You have received my unwavering, passionate, and deeply personal love, poured out entirely for you in the very midst of your deepest brokenness. Long before I part the massive waters that are currently blocking your path, and long before I open the heavy iron doors that have remained stubbornly closed for years, I have already given you the ultimate enduring miracle. I have given you myself. This is the magnificent foundational truth that permanently anchors your soul in perfect peace. This is the profound heavenly secret that empowers you to smile gently at the rapidly approaching storm, absolutely knowing that the rushing wind and the crashing waves can never ever strip away the divine romance that is securely blooming inside your completely healed heart. By elevating your desire for my presence above your desire for a sudden change in your circumstances, you are beautifully and perfectly preparing your heart for the ultimate breakthrough that is rapidly approaching. A heart that is entirely satisfied with me is the only kind of heart that can safely carry the immense weight of the massive blessing I am about to release. Because you no longer need the miracle in order to feel validated, secure, or loved. The miracle will simply become a joyful, overflowing addition to a life that is already completely whole. You will not worship the answered prayer. You will use the answered prayer to worship me. You will not cling desperately to the gift. You will hold it with open, grateful hands, perfectly content to let me guide the entirety of your journey. Rest securely in this profound sweetness today, my precious child. Stop frantically checking the horizon for a sign of changing weather, and simply enjoy the beautiful warmth of the sun that is already shining directly on your face. Lean the heavy weight of your tired head against my shoulder, and let the exhausting noise of the world completely fade into absolute silence. You are not a spiritual employee desperately trying to earn a divine paycheck. You are a deeply cherished child resting safely in the living room of your Father. The intimate fellowship we are sharing right now is the true enduring prize of your entire journey. It is the exquisite, unbreakable foundation upon which your future will be securely built. As you fully embrace the profound beauty of our relationship, independent of any external changes, you are effortlessly transitioning from temporary daily survival into a permanent, unshakable bedrock of enduring, joyful resilience. That unshakable bedrock of enduring, joyful resilience is the beautiful, quiet masterpiece we have been building together all along. I want you to pause and look back over your shoulder for just a moment, entirely removing any judgment, to truly see how far you have come. Think back to those first lonely nights of weeping, when the darkness in your room felt completely suffocating, and the silence was almost too heavy to bear. You used to sit on the edge of your bed, staring blankly at the floor, absolutely convinced that you had nothing left to give and nowhere left to go. You genuinely believed that the crushing weight of your circumstances was going to permanently break your spirit. But look at you now, my child. Look at the magnificent quiet strength that has beautifully blossomed within your spirit. You did not break. You were meticulously, lovingly remade. The profound difference between the person who fell to their knees in sheer desperation and the person who is standing before me today is nothing short of miraculous. The frantic, exhausting energy of simply trying to survive the next hour has completely dissipated. In its place, a deep, abiding hope has taken root. I want to be very clear about what this hope actually is, because the world has taught you a very weak definition of the word. To the world, hope is merely wishful thinking, a desperate crossing of the fingers, a fragile wish tossed into the wind, hoping the universe randomly rolls the dice in your favor. But biblical hope, the hope I have intentionally planted deep within your chest, is an entirely different substance. It is a confident, unwavering, and absolute expectation of my perfect goodness, completely regardless of what tomorrow brings. This hope does not ignore the reality of the giant standing in front of you. It simply recognizes that I am infinitely bigger than the giant. It is an anchor made of solid steel for your weary soul, holding your mind perfectly steady when the external winds begin to howl. I know there are still passing moments when the fading echoes of your old exhaustion try to gently brush against your thoughts. A final faint whisper of cynicism might attempt to slip in through the back door of your mind, quietly suggesting that you are foolish for getting your hopes up again. The enemy wants to manufacture a lingering spiritual fatigue, telling you that this newfound peace is just a temporary fragile illusion before the next devastating shoe inevitably drops. He wants you to constantly brace for impact. But I am lovingly, permanently washing away those final remnants of spiritual fatigue right now with the absolute certainty of my faithfulness. You are not foolish for hoping, and you are not naive for believing that the dawn is finally breaking. You are profoundly, beautifully wise for placing your complete trust in the Creator, who has never once failed you. Let the heavy defensive posture you have carried for so long completely fall away. You no longer have to protect yourself from disappointment by expecting the absolute worst. You can finally afford to look at the horizon with genuine, joyful anticipation, knowing that I am already there, carefully preparing the ground for your arrival. You have beautifully reached a sacred milestone in your spiritual journey. You are now fully and completely detached from the desperate need to meticulously control your own outcomes. For so long, you carried the impossible burden of trying to orchestrate your own deliverance. You would lie awake at night, endlessly calculating timelines, mentally arranging the fragile pieces of your life, and trying to figure out exactly how the puzzle would finally fit together. If a piece did not fit you, panicked. But now, you have gently opened your tightly clenched fists. You have handed the heavy, confusing pieces completely over to me, absolutely trusting that my hands are infinitely more capable than yours. This brilliant release of control is exactly what allows you to walk in the profound, unshakable inner peace that precedes the miracle. We have talked extensively about how my peace must completely anchor your soul before my blessing can safely rest in your hands. And you are living out that glorious reality in this very moment. You are completely whole, profoundly secure, and entirely satisfied in my presence, even while the external doors remain temporarily closed. You are no longer holding your breath in the hallway. You are singing in the hallway completely at peace with the pace of my perfect timing. Because you have let go of the timeline has completely lost its agonizing power over your emotions. As you stand firmly on this unshakable foundation, you are undoubtedly feeling a surging, powerful sense of spiritual maturity taking over your mind. You are beginning to look at the deep, jagged scars of your past with a completely different perspective. You finally recognize that nothing you endured in that terrifying valley was ever wasted. I have taken your deepest, most agonizing pain and masterfully, beautifully repurposed it into your greatest testimony. The profound empathy you now naturally possess, the gentle, comforting way you speak to others who are silently hurting, the quiet, undeniable authority you carry when you bow your head to pray. All of this magnificent strength was meticulously forged in the very fire you once thought would entirely consume you. Let me remind you of the mornings when you woke up with a heavy chest, when simply making a cup of coffee and looking out the window felt like a monumental victory. I celebrated every single one of those quiet, unseen victories with you. I saw the incredible courage it took to put one foot in front of the other when you could not see the clear path ahead. The strength you possess today was built in those tiny, ordinary moments of choosing faith over despair, of choosing to whisper a simple word of gratitude when your heart was breaking. Every small act of perseverance has compounded into this massive, unshakable fortress of hope that you now safely reside in. You are no longer just a survivor of a terrible storm. You are a beacon of radiant light for those who are currently lost in the dark. When people look into your eyes now, they do not see the frantic panic of a victim. They see the deep, settled calm of someone who has wrestled with the shadows and emerged completely victorious by my grace. You have discovered that your pain was never a punishment, but a profound, intense preparation. It was the heavy plow breaking up the hard, bitter soil of your heart, making absolutely sure that the ground was ready to hold the massive harvest that is to come. This deep, enduring hope you are feeling is the final perfect preparation of that soil. We have methodically pulled the suffocating weeds of doubt. We have shattered the heavy, jagged rocks of fear. We have actively cultivated a rich, soft earth within your spirit that is now perfectly aligned, completely open, and absolutely ready to receive the physical breakthrough. You are no longer approaching the finish line, limping and gasping for air. You are stepping forward with your head held high, your shoulders pulled back, and your heart overflowing with a confident, joyful resilience that the enemy cannot possibly touch. I want you to breathe in the absolute purity of this moment. Inhale the deep restorative grace that fills this room. You are safe. You are ready. The grueling season of invisible internal preparation is drawing to a beautiful, triumphant close. You have successfully learned how to sit with me in the quiet darkness. You have learned how to fight off the terrifying shadows of anxiety. And you have learned how to genuinely praise me long before the heavy iron doors swing open. Because your internal world is now so beautifully secured by my love, you are fully prepared to handle the radical shift that is about to occur in your external world. Do not let anyone convince you that this peace is simply a coping mechanism for your delayed dreams. This peace is the absolute, undeniable proof that the miracle has already occurred inside of you. The internal transformation is entirely complete. The bedrock of enduring hope has been flawlessly poured and has permanently set within your soul. You are now standing on solid ground, and nothing can shake you from this holy place. You have absolutely nothing left to prove, nothing left to frantically figure out, and nothing left to desperately control. You simply get to rest here, enveloped in the magnificent sweetness of our fellowship. As you fully embrace this quiet assurance, we are now ready to completely turn our eyes together toward the breathtaking physical manifestation of the promise I made to you, stepping seamlessly into the moment where your faith finally becomes sight. But just before those physical walls around you begin to finally fall, I want you to completely pause and experience the sheer, breathtaking magnitude of what has just happened inside of you. Look at the heavy burden you have been dragging through the dark for so many agonizing months. It has completely dropped from your weary shoulders. The chains of your emotional captivity, the invisible weights that made it so difficult to simply breathe, are violently breaking off your spirit, right here, right now. You are stepping entirely out of the prison of your own grief, not because the external doors have been unlocked yet, but because you have finally realized that I have held the key to your absolute liberation all along. This is the monumental moment of your ultimate surrender. For so long you held on to your pain as if it were a protective shield, terrified that if you let it go, you would be left completely vulnerable to even more disappointment. You held on to your desperate need for immediate answers, convinced that understanding exactly why everything happened was the only possible way you could ever heal. But right now, in the quiet sanctuary of my presence, I feel your hands finally unclenching. You are letting go of the exhausting demand to figure it all out, and in doing so, you are allowing the soft, warm light of my grace to pour into every single hidden corner of your soul. The profound relief that is washing over you in this exact moment is not an illusion. It is the rushing, magnificent wave of my divine peace fully conquering your fear. Take a deep, unobstructed breath. Do you feel the difference? The suffocating, restrictive tightness in your chest is completely gone. The persistent, anxious voice that constantly told you to brace for disaster has been permanently silenced by the overwhelming, undeniable reality of my unconditional love. You have successfully navigated the absolute darkest part of the valley, and you have emerged on the other side not as a shattered victim, but as a brilliant, triumphant warrior of faith. I want you to completely understand the magnificent truth of this moment. My precious child, the greatest, most spectacular miracle of your entire journey has already taken place, and it did not happen in your bank account, your career, or your external circumstances. The greatest miracle is the glorious, undeniable resurrection of your shattered heart. The enemy desperately tried to crush your spirit until there was nothing left but bitter dust. But I have taken those broken pieces and miraculously breathed vibrant, enduring life back into them. Your heart is beating right now with a powerful, steady rhythm of grace that the world can never, ever disrupt. This internal resurrection is the ultimate proof of my power working within you. When you thought you were completely hollowed out by your suffering, I was actually making beautiful, permanent space to pour in a measure of my peace so vast and uncontainable that it could heal even the deepest, oldest wounds. You are completely safe now. The turbulent waters that threatened to pull you under have completely receded, replaced by the still, quiet streams of my comforting presence. I want you to feel deeply and profoundly cherished in this space. You can finally lower your defensive walls completely. The exhaustion of constantly guarding your own heart is beautifully replaced by the absolute certainty that I am your ultimate, unfailing protector. You no longer have to fight for your survival. You no longer have to beg for my attention. And you no longer have to wonder if your prayers are simply echoing off an empty sky. Every single tear you cried in the midnight hours has been carefully collected, meticulously weighed, and transformed into the very strength that now permanently fortifies your soul. Look at how beautifully your spiritual victory has been completely secured entirely through your faith and your trust. This is what brings me the most profound joy. You did not wait until the storm entirely passed to declare my goodness. You found the courage to stand right in the middle of the raging wind and boldly praise my name. You secured the victory in the unseen realm long before the visible realm even began to catch up. This is the absolute essence of spiritual maturity. You have learned the magnificent secret that true freedom is never found in escaping your circumstances, but in discovering my unshakable presence right in the middle of them. The heavy, exhausting coat of mourning you have worn for so long has been completely removed. I am wrapping you instead in a radiant, brilliant garment of praise. Let the warm, sweeping wave of divine relief completely permeate your mind, your emotions, and your physical body. You do not need to carry an ounce of tension anymore. The invisible burdens that made you feel so completely isolated have evaporated. Your mind is perfectly clear, completely swept clean of the terrifying illusions and toxic lies that once held you captive. You are experiencing an absolute total liberation of your thoughts, your feelings, and your spirit. It is a sweeping, glorious pardon from the agonizing spiritual exhaustion you have carried. You are no longer bound by the heavy expectations of the world, nor are you chained to the painful regrets of yesterday. You are entirely free, completely forgiven, and remarkably restored. I see the gentle tears beginning to form in your eyes right now, and I know exactly what they mean. These are no longer the bitter, burning tears of grief, desperation, or unbearable loneliness. These are the beautiful, cleansing tears of profound release. They are a sacred offering, a quiet testament to the incredible endurance of your faith through the longest, coldest winter of your life. They are the physical manifestation of your soul, finally exhaling after holding its breath for what feels like an eternity. Let them fall, my child. Let every single drop wash away the lingering memories of your past pain, leaving behind nothing but the pure, unadulterated joy of your complete restoration. As you stand in this glorious, victorious stage, completely healed internally, I want you to recognize the immense, unshakable power you now possess. Because you have survived the darkest night with your faith completely intact, there is absolutely nothing the enemy can ever throw at you that will cause you to break. You have already faced the absolute worst of your fears, and you have discovered that my grace is infinitely greater than every single one of them. You are permanently anchored to a foundation that cannot be moved, cannot be shaken, and cannot be destroyed by any earthly force. You have entirely stopped being afraid of the shadows, because you now carry the brilliant, blinding light of my presence permanently inside of you. This is the triumphant breakthrough of your heart. It is a quiet internal explosion of radiant light that permanently chases away the remaining shadows. I want you to simply rest in this magnificent realization for a moment. Do not rush past this sacred, holy accomplishment. You did the incredibly difficult work. You sat in the uncomfortable silence. You wrestled with your agonizing doubts. You confronted your deepest fears, and you chose to trust my character, even when my hand was completely hidden from your view. I am so incredibly proud of you. I want you to feel the warmth of my embrace, enveloping you completely, whispering the absolute truth that you are deeply, permanently, and unconditionally loved. The depth of my love for you in this exact moment is absolutely boundless. You have crossed the invisible vital threshold, The battle for your mind and your emotions has been completely, definitively won. You have successfully uncoupled your deep abiding joy from the unpredictable shifting circumstances of the temporary world around you. By fully embracing the reality that my peace must always come before my miracle, you have permanently transformed your internal landscape into a beautiful, flourishing garden, where fear simply cannot take root. The soil of your soul is now perfectly, beautifully prepared, entirely free from the suffocating weeds of anxiety and the heavy rocks of despair. You are walking in absolute freedom, completely detached from the devastating outcomes you once feared so profoundly. With your internal world now completely flooded by the brilliant warm light of this absolute liberation, and your spirit resting perfectly in the unwavering certainty of my love, the stage is flawlessly set for what comes next. Your heart has been miraculously resurrected. Your deep spiritual victory has been definitively claimed in the dark, and you are finally completely ready to step forward and witness exactly how the magnificent, unshakable faith you have built in the valley is about to radically and beautifully reshape the physical reality of the world unfolding entirely in front of you. Watch closely now, my child, as the very atmosphere around you begins to physically change. The heavy, invisible resistance that has pushed against you for so long is suddenly giving way. You have felt the internal shift, the profound settling of your soul, but now your physical eyes are about to witness the undeniable unfolding of your appointed miracle. Those towering, intimidating mountains of circumstance that you once genuinely believed would never, ever budge are finally beginning to tremble. I am actively moving them right now, entirely on your behalf. The massive iron doors that have stubbornly refused to open, despite years of your exhausted knocking, are swinging wide open with an effortless divine grace. I am completely lifting the heavy, suffocating burdens that have kept you awake night after agonizing night. The crushing financial strains, the painfully broken relationships, the endless professional delays. I am breathing sudden, vibrant life into the exact places you thought were completely, permanently dead. I want you to feel a profound, holy awe sweeping through your spirit as you watch these impossibilities finally crumble. You are not just experiencing a random stroke of earthly luck or a sudden change in the chaotic winds of fate. You are witnessing the precise, undeniable manifestation of my hand working meticulously in the finest, most intricate details of your daily life. Every single time the phone rings with unexpected good news, every time a closed opportunity suddenly miraculously reverses course, and every time a seemingly insurmountable obstacle simply dissolves before you even reach it, I want you to clearly recognize my voice whispering, I told you, I would not fail you. I want your heart to overflow with a deep, radiant gratitude that absolutely defies human logic. You are finally stepping out of the agonizing season of quiet, hidden endurance and directly into the brilliant, glorious season of visible, triumphant vindication. I know there were so many moments in the dark valley when you desperately questioned my timing. You asked me over and over again why the delay had to last so incredibly long, why the agonizing wait stretched into months and years, when you knew I had the power to change it all in a single fleeting second. But look carefully at the magnificent picture unfolding right in front of you now. You can finally see that every single second of your delay was perfectly, flawlessly calculated. The timing of this exact breakthrough is an absolute masterpiece of divine orchestration. If I had answered your desperate prayers on your original rushed timeline, you would have received the blessing with hands that were entirely too fragile to hold it. You would have been utterly crushed by the immense weight of the responsibility, and the sudden drastic shift would have completely destabilized your unanchored faith. You would have looked to the gift for your ultimate salvation, instead of looking to me, the generous giver of the gift. That is why the delay was necessary. But look at how incredibly strong your hands are today. Look at how beautifully resilient your spirit has become through the rigorous holy testing of the waiting room. The miracle arriving in your life right now is infinitely sweeter, far more profound and permanently sustainable, precisely because you learned the most valuable spiritual lesson of all. You learned to find my perfect peace long before the physical miracle ever appeared, because you discovered how to be entirely content with just my presence in the absolute darkest of nights. This radiant morning light will not blind you, nor will it distract you from the true source of your joy. You will not worship this breakthrough. You will simply use it as a magnificent living testimony to worship me. You are entirely capable of handling this immense blessing without ever losing your spiritual balance. Let the sheer amazement of this moment completely wash over you. I want you to actively enjoy the beautiful, astonishing surprise of my goodness. You have spent so much of your life constantly bracing for the next disaster, constantly expecting the other shoe to drop, and constantly preparing your fragile heart for yet another crushing disappointment. I am commanding you right now to completely release that heavy defensive posture. You do not need to look over your shoulder anymore, waiting for the shadows to return and snatch this beautiful blessing away. What I am building in your life right now is completely secure, deeply rooted, and divinely protected. The enemy has absolutely no legal right to touch the magnificent harvest that is currently springing up from the tears you sowed in the dark valley. I am setting a beautiful, abundant table for you right in the absolute presence of the very fears that once tried to destroy you. You have learned to trust me as the gentle, comforting God who sits with you in the ashes, who collects your tears, and who quietly sustains your breathing when your heart is breaking. But right now, in this new season, you are going to experience an entirely different, incredibly powerful side of my absolute love for you. You are going to see me as the fierce, unstoppable God who violently defends you against the darkness, the sovereign Lord, who actively, relentlessly fights for your ultimate vindication in the bright light of day. I am currently restoring the years that the locusts have violently eaten away. I am returning everything that was stolen from you, and I am multiplying it with a generous, overwhelming grace that will leave you absolutely breathless. Your quiet, faithful endurance has permanently captured my heart, and I am stepping directly into your physical reality to prove that your unyielding trust in my character was never, ever misplaced. As the heavy iron doors continue to swing open all around you, do not rush frantically through them. Walk through this glorious new season with a slow, deliberate, and deeply joyful reverence. Notice the incredible, precise timing of the people I am suddenly placing in your path to help carry you forward. Notice the perfectly aligned circumstances that are suddenly removing every single ounce of the financial, emotional, and physical strain you have carried entirely alone for so long. This is what it looks like when heaven completely invades earth on behalf of a deeply cherished child. I am carefully, lovingly knitting the shattered, painful pieces of your past directly into the brilliant, breathtaking tapestry of your future, ensuring that every single moment of your previous suffering is now fully redeemed and repurposed for your ultimate permanent good. You will look back at the valley and realize that not a single tear fell without a wholly divine purpose attached to it. The pain was merely the plow preparing the ground for this exact harvest. This physical breakthrough is not just a temporary reprieve from your pain. It is a permanent, monumental shift in the entire trajectory of your life. You are stepping into a profound season of divine favor that will radically alter the legacy of your entire family. The powerful, miraculous changes happening right now are going to echo through generations, serving as a permanent, unshakable monument to the undeniable truth that I am exactly who I say I am. The heavy, dark winter has definitively passed. The bitter, freezing rains are completely over and gone. The beautiful, vibrant season of singing has finally arrived in your land, and I am personally inviting you to raise your voice in a triumphant, joyful shout that completely shatters whatever tiny remnants of fear still attempt to linger in the atmosphere. Feel the incredible physical weight lifting completely off your tired chest. Feel the joyful, undeniable rush of pure heavenly adrenaline surging through your veins as you finally realize that the long, agonizing battle is officially over. You have won. We have won. The promised breakthrough is no longer a distant theological concept or a fragile, hopeful dream written in your journal. It is the concrete, undeniable reality you are waking up to every single morning. Let the profound, holy awe of this magnificent truth completely saturate your entire being. You are deeply loved, fiercely protected, and spectacularly vindicated. As you stand here in the brilliant, overwhelming light of my fulfilled promises, taking in the sheer magnitude of the miracles unfolding all around you, your heart is finally perfectly prepared to receive the ultimate blessing, the final enduring seal of my absolute peace, as I commission you to walk boldly into the magnificent, limitless future I have always destined for you. That magnificent, limitless future is not a distant, lonely landscape you will ever have to navigate by yourself. It is a shared, continuous journey, a beautiful, eternal extension of the intimate relationship we have so carefully forged in the absolute darkest depths of your valley. My child, I want you to completely understand that while this specific excruciating trial has officially ended, and the heavy, suffocating clouds have finally parted, our profound spiritual connection is only just beginning to truly bloom. The dramatic rescue from your circumstances was never the final goal. The rescue was simply the glorious doorway into a much deeper, unconditional romance with your Creator. The breathtaking miracles you are witnessing right now, the doors swinging open, the relationships healing, and the financial burdens lifting, are incredibly magnificent. But they are only the beautiful, temporary setting for the greatest, most enduring love story of your life. Take my hand right now, and let us walk together out of the lingering shadows of yesterday and directly into the brilliant, warming sunlight of this spectacular new day. There is a gentle, crucial wisdom I must impart to you as you step boldly into this season of unprecedented abundance. When the fierce winds of adversity were howling and the terrifying floodwaters were rapidly rising, it was entirely natural for you to cling to me with every single ounce of strength you possessed. Your profound desperation drove you directly into my arms, and your pain forced you to seek my face when you had absolutely nowhere else to turn. But now that the storm has completely passed, and your days are suddenly filled with joyful ease, effortless victories, and unexpected blessings, I am asking you to hold my hand in the radiant sunlight, just as tightly as you did in the terrifying storm. Do not let the incredible comfort of this new season lull you into a false, dangerous sense of spiritual independence. The truest, most mature expression of your faith is not crying out to me when you have absolutely nothing left, but choosing to passionately and intentionally pursue my presence when your hands are completely full of the very blessings you prayed for. Let your profound gratitude become the new, unbreakable anchor for your soul, replacing the desperate, agonizing cries of your past with a continuous, joyful, and effortless song of worship. As you elevate your spirit into this beautiful, permanent posture of pure worship, let it completely wash away any lingering microscopic fragments of anxiety that might still be hiding in the hidden corners of your mind. You do not have to nervously scan the horizon anymore, constantly bracing for the next disaster, or wondering when the other shoe is going to drop. The paralyzing fear that once dominated your thoughts has been permanently evicted by my perfect love. If a new season of waiting, a different kind of transition, or an unexpected challenge ever arrives in the years to come, you will absolutely not face it with the frantic, exhausting panic of your past. You will face it with the unshakable, quiet confidence of a seasoned warrior who already knows exactly how the story ultimately ends. Your complete, unyielding trust in my perfect timing has been permanently sealed within your heart. You absolutely know, without a shadow of a doubt, that if I ever ask you to wait again, it is only because I am meticulously building something even more spectacular for your future. This enduring, battle-tested hope is the ultimate glorious reward of your long season of suffering. You have been completely transformed, beautifully remade in the holy fire of adversity into a magnificent vessel of pure, radiant light. Now I want you to gently lift your chin, square your shoulders, and turn your eyes entirely away from the painful, haunting memories of your trauma. The agonizing chapters of your profound grief have been permanently closed. The life-altering lessons have been flawlessly learned, and the ink on those pages is completely dry. Stop looking over your shoulder to reread the pages of your past heartbreaks and start looking forward toward the vast, breathtaking horizon of your divine purpose. I have uniquely and intentionally positioned you for a magnificent calling that goes far beyond your own personal healing and vindication. You are going to take the profound comfort, the relentless grace, and the absolute perfect peace you have discovered in the quietness of my presence, and you are going to pour it out generously onto a world that is still desperately silently hurting. Your beautifully restored life is now a living, breathing testament to my miraculous restorative power. When others look closely at you, they will not see the devastating scars of your defeat. They will see the undeniable, brilliant, and radiant evidence of my unconditional love and absolute faithfulness. You are going to be a beacon of hope for those who are currently walking through the exact same dark valley you just miraculously survived. When they are weeping in the midnight hours, completely convinced that their circumstances are entirely hopeless, you will gently take their hands, look them directly in the eyes, and tell them with absolute unshakable authority that the dawn is absolutely coming. You will be able to speak my promises over their lives, not as empty religious cliches, but as the concrete, undeniably proven reality of your own extraordinary survival. This is the magnificent, overarching reason for everything you have endured. I did not just save you for your own comfort. I saved you so that your brilliant, restored life could become a vital, desperately needed lifeline for countless others. Breathe in the magnificent, overwhelming, and life-changing reality of this moment. Let the pure, unadulterated joy of your complete deliverance saturate your mind, your emotions, and your physical body. You are completely safe. You are deeply, permanently, and passionately loved. Every single tear you ever cried has been flawlessly redeemed. Every agonizing delay has been perfectly justified. And every ounce of your excruciating weight has been beautifully, overwhelmingly rewarded with a profound peace that completely surpasses all human understanding. Let your weary heart finally overflow with pure, uncontainable joy. Dance freely in the refreshing, abundant rain of my blessings. Laugh out loud in the radiant, comforting warmth of my favor. And rest absolutely, permanently secure in the unshakable certainty that I will never, ever let you go. This is the joyful, triumphant continuation of our magnificent journey together. We are stepping forward into tomorrow, forever united, completely victorious, and endlessly wrapped in the profound sweetness of a heavenly grace that will perfectly sustain you for all of eternity. As we beautifully and permanently seal this sacred, transformative journey today, I want to leave you with a final, heartfelt prayer. Let these simple, powerful words take deep, permanent root within your renewed spirit. Carry this prayer with you as a permanent blessing, a holy shield, and a continuous celebration of our intimate fellowship as you boldly step into your magnificent new season. Lord, I thank you with absolutely every piece of my restored heart for safely and faithfully carrying me through the darkest, coldest valley of my life. Thank you for being my quiet, relentless strength when I was entirely too exhausted to stand, and the unshakable solid anchor when my fragile world was completely falling apart. I release every single ounce of my past pain, my lingering doubts, and my deep grief to you right now, fully and joyfully, embracing the beautiful, incredibly abundant future you have flawlessly prepared for me. Give me the daily wisdom and the profound spiritual maturity to hold your hand just as tightly in the joyful, radiant sunlight as I did in the terrifying, chaotic storm. Let my completely transformed life be a continuous, brilliant reflection of your unconditional love, your absolutely perfect timing, and your endless, unmerited grace. I trust you completely with my tomorrow and with every single day that follows. Because I know you have never, ever failed me. In your holy, magnificent, and precious name, I rest in absolute enduring peace. Amen.